Welcome to the last Monday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show for 2025. I'm Dan Olstrand. Very glad that you're able to join us. Some of you may be listening to us on a battery-powered radio. As still, last time I checked, just before we came on, still about 800 Nova Scotia Power customers across the province that are without electricity after that storm on the weekend. And what a weekend weather! Wow, it was 119 kilometers an hour is the official gust that was recorded on Friday through Saturday at the airport. Now, I woke up Saturday morning after not sleeping very well because for whatever reason, the windows in my bedroom were orientated directly into the teeth of that wind. So it was rattling and whistling, and I know many of you had the same experience that I did, but luckily I woke up with lights. Some of you obviously didn't. Reports of almost at some point throughout the restoration effort after Friday/Saturday storm, 200,000 people were without, or I should say customers, because that will mean more people than customers, were without power at some point. And as I mentioned, a couple of days later, at last check, still about 800 people in Nova Scotia without lights. Alistair Alders has updated his maps over the weekend and the imaging and all the models. And if you were listening to us on Friday, he was leaning towards a white Christmas for HRM. Looks like that has changed. And it looks like it's going to be difficult to attain that with the forecast. Now, it's going to get cold, but it doesn't look like there's going to be a lot of snow in the forecast. So there's always a possibility. We know that if you don't like the weather here in Nova Scotia, you wait 5 minutes, it's going to change. And maybe for those of you that are wishing upon a star for a white Christmas, you might still see that. But it looks like the forecasters, the prognosticators are suggesting that at least in HRM proper, it may be a difficult task to attain. We're going to bring Alistair onto the show later this week to give us another look and take a look back at the weather year that was. Just very quickly before we get to councillors, short programming note for the week. Now, we're here at the Todd Veinotte Show, and we'll be live today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. And then we'll shut down until January 5th. And we'll have some best of editions to fill our regular time slot over the holidays. Those of you that listen to the Rob Snow Show after ours, he's off both this week and next. And again, we have some encore programming there for you during his regular 2-hour slot. And just a brief note, if I might. On Wednesday, we're going to do a Christmas Eve edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm looking forward to it. I understand there may be Santa hats. I understand there may be eggnog, as I look through the glass at Vanessa Vandenez, who's doing a fantastic job, as always. And I hear that Santa Claus himself will be joining the show, probably from his sleigh at that point in the day, and we'll be here to take some calls and maybe get some last-minute requests into the jolly old elf. The guy works magic. He can, change that list as he's flying through the air. And hey, I'm going to do my very best to get onto the nice list. I don't know if I'm there yet or not, but we'll see what happens anyway. And if you have your grandkids at home, if your children are at home, it's school's out now. So if they're perhaps working on a nerve, good opportunity for them to join the program as well and get their last-minute requests in to Santa Claus. We're going to do that on Wednesday. As is tradition here on the Todd Veinotte Show, it is Monday, and that means it's time for us to welcome a pair of councillors in to the, into the studio. One councillor into the studio, another on the phone for the last councillors of the hot seat of 2025. And we'll start with the councillor on the phone, and he's joining us all the way from District 2, Lawrencetown, the Lakes, Chezzetcook, Eastern Shore, and that is Mr. David Hendsbee. And I will almost guarantee you that he's sitting in his house somewhere with a phone to his ear, and he's got some kind of Boston Bruins memorabilia on. I did.
Correcto, yes.
Oh, yes, and it's being very nice and kind because the Maple Leafs are, the Maple Leafs this time around. Anyway, also in the studio today, joining us as has been tradition for him for several years now, from District 9, that's Halifax West Armdale, and that is Councillor Shawn Cleary. Shawn, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
902-405-6000, 1-877-780-1-8255. That's the number. Very quickly, before we get to the phones and to the questions, what does Christmas look like at Councillor Cleary's household?
Oh, gosh. It varies year to year. I think this year we're going over to friends. Apparently, we're bringing the turkey, and they're doing all the other stuff. Oftentimes, we're not around for Christmas. We're out of town, often on a ski vacation. So looking forward to hanging out with some friends and family. Most of my family lives in many other provinces, and that's probably like a lot of folks here, especially in the Maritimes. And so, a lot of time hanging out by the fireplace, talking to friends and family on the phone, FaceTiming, all that kind of good stuff.
How about you, Councillor Hendsbee?
Well, we're fighting a bit of a cold here in this household, so we're going to keep it low key this year and stuff, and try and get over the holidays with this whatever you call it, flu cold, whatever it is.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're not feeling well.
It'd be a church service, for Christmas Eve and stuff. It'd be one of the traditional things I do, and probably see some family during the holidays if I'm feeling good. So that's how it is.
902-405-6000 or 1-877-780-1-8255. Of course, the business doesn't ever stop, right? We always have counselors. We always have questions for our counselors. And I came across a story on the CBC's website this morning, Councillor Cleary. I'll begin with you on this one. And it has to go, of course, with the current iteration of council, some of the discussions and debates that have happened between councillors and the mayor around. Understand that you all went off and had a bit of a session after some contentious issues were debated at City Council. Can you tell me a little bit about those sessions and were they helpful?
Were they helpful? So I like to refer to it as governance therapy. It was a time for us to get together and recall just how municipal government works. So you know what? It was a tumultuous year, and I do believe, based on where we are now, that it was, at least to this point anyway, effective in that, the mayor and council seem to be working better than we were, say, 6 months ago.
Councillor Hendsbee, your thoughts on that session?
Well, it was a good team-building exercise.
Fair enough. Obviously, there's going to be some discussions as we roll into 2026 that will likely not be easy discussions to have, and I'm also obviously referring to the budget deliberations. And Mayor Fillmore was on the show on Friday and had suggested that as the pre-budget consultations have kind of wrapped up, that the 10.5% increase in rate has gone up to 10.9%, which is kind of going the wrong way. I would imagine that we get down to the nuts and bolts when we get back to work in January. And I'll start with you, Councillor Cleary. Your thoughts thus far on the budget process and where we go from here and what it's going to look like at the end. So I guess for someone who's been around for 9 budgets, unlike the mayor, I have a different perspective. So I'll step back and frame it for people. In the fall of each year, staff come to us and say, look, based on everything you've told us to do over the last year, based on the last year's budget and the growth that comes from that, here's what building a budget would look like, and here's what the revenue would be required, and therefore here's, on our estimation of assessments, because we don't have the assessment roll yet, here's what a tax rate would look like. And so that is when we send staff away to go build the budget. So the budget hasn't been built yet. That'll come to us in the next number of months, particularly kind of mid-late January, February, and into March. And so at that point is when we're building the budget. Right now, staff are just going away to draft a budget to bring it to us. Never in the 9 years that I've been on council has the budget in April looked like the budget in January. And so people shouldn't get all worked up about 10.5, 10.9. Even last year, although I believe some of the machinations were not appropriate and prudent, we came way further down than what the original budget request from staff was. And so that is the natural part of building a budget. The way we do it municipally is unlike any other level of government.
When the province and the feds go build a budget, they do it behind closed doors. Cabinet has a look at it. Here's what our priorities are. Here's what we're going to do. Then they introduce it to their caucus. Then they introduce it to the legislature. Then the estimates come in and they're debated, and more or less, if it's a majority government anyway, things look like they do at the beginning.
Right.
That's not the case in municipal government. Everything we do is in public. And so from the time staff say, here's what we need to, here's all the things you could do to make it bigger, make it smaller, all of that discussion happens in public. And so I wish the media would report on that part of the process rather than just, staff, we're looking for 10.5%, because that scares the bejesus out of people. Unnecessarily so, because again, if you look back over the last 9 years that I've been on council and go back even further to David, who's been on council since the wheel was invented, it's never looked in April the way it looked at the beginning of the year. That
being said, Councillor Cleary, many councillors have sat in these chairs throughout this process and have told us the same thing, that staff was told to bring a bare bones budget into the beginning of this discussion, and I assume that they did so, and still we're looking at that large increase in. So it depends on what you interpret bare bones to mean. So what staff do is when they bring in the framework in that first meeting, it's saying, look, based on what you've already told us to do, projecting that forward, here's what it would be. That's not bare bones. Bare bones is, okay, what are the things we absolutely must do, and can we take away those things? Staff are not allowed to bring a budget like that because they have to get direction from council to start removing stuff or adding stuff that we haven't already approved. And so bare bones in the sense that it didn't add anything over and above what we're already doing. Right. So the pressure that comes, and families are feeling this in their pockets, just like we are in any order of government. The cost of everything is going up. Our workforce is mostly unionized, and all those collective agreements are contractual obligations to pay this amount over these periods of time. And several of those over the last number of terms that I've been on council have been arbitrated. So we didn't actually have control over them, police, for example. And so when those numbers come in, that is saying, okay, if you're going to have X many cops, if you're going to have X many firefighters, X many, libraries, if you're going to have X many potholes filled, here's what the thing is. So now it's our job to say, are we going to do all those things? Are we going to add anything new? Are we going to take away things that people already get? So that discussion has yet to happen. But to your point, with the biggest expense being humans, yep, right? And these collective agreements that you're bound to, and other than massive layoffs at City Hall, you must have some sort of idea where this is going to rest, because there's a lot of expenses that you can adjust. Actually, so if you're going to drive a bus, right, it needs a driver. Right. So that's a person you can't lay off. Right. If you're going to provide that service, there's a bare minimum of that. Then how does the bus move? Well, most of our buses are still diesel, so you got to fill it up. Well, we're not in control of the price of diesel. Right. The world market is. And so that part is uncontrollable unless you say we're going to reduce service. We're going to take away bus service. The other thing would be, police officers or firefighters or anything. So are we going to not respond as well to fires and so on? So when you actually look at it, there's very little of the budget that is discretionary, if you want to call it that. And so you're really fiddling at the edges. And so we could do that. And we could do a few things that people probably won't notice very much. But as soon as you get into the really big stuff to make a big impact so that the tax bill doesn't go up, you're cutting services that people want. So then it's a debate around what are the priorities? What are the things people are telling us that they don't want as much of, or that is sacred and we can't touch that? Councillor Hendsbee, thoughts?
Well, Sean covered it pretty well. The biggest thing is talk about the ratio of population base to services. As a population keeps continuing to grow, how many police officers and firefighters we need to serve that population base. When it comes to contractual obligations, those have been almost settled. So I think there's only maybe one yet to go. So those have been confirmed. We're finding our construction cost estimates are a little out of whack from the industry reality and stuff. So we're looking at our capital budget and stuff, and what's going to be done. Our state of good repair versus new projects. We're going to have a balance, and we just fix what we got or build nothing new. Those are some of the questions we're going to be debating.
Councillor Cleary, very quickly before we take our break, we had a conversation with Mayor Fillmore on Friday, and one of the comments that he made during that interview was that there are some that are new on council, that this is their second go around at the budget, and they're still kind of learning the way that it goes. And then there are some that have had let's just say more seasoned at the budget process, and may be attached to some pet projects that they're not willing to move on. What's your thoughts on what the mayor had to say about that?
I didn't hear it, so just based on what you're saying, I don't know what a pet project is. So anything that council does has to be voted on by at least a majority of council. So I think once that happens, it's no longer pet in that sense that it's one person's project. It's an agreement that it's something the municipality does. So I would have to understand what he means by that. At this point anyway, he, and I don't want to ascribe motivations, but is certainly not wedded to anything. He certainly doesn't think highly of the former mayor and the former council.
Councillor Hendsbee.
Well, we have a few pet projects like the Cogswell Interchange is one of the things that the city builders, and which he started off doing. So if you ask me, he's probably waiting to see some dividends finally be paid off from the Cogswell Interchange project. There's a lot of investment done there, and hopefully that'll pay off over the next few years. The Windsor Street Interchange was a big project that both the province and the feds wanted us to do, so we're doing that. So I don't think consider that a pet project or a priority project. And we have other things like, fixing the roads. Everybody doesn't like the potholes and stuff like that, so we got to make sure the urban streets are taken care of. I got to deal with the province of a lot of the rural areas and stuff, so hopefully the province will keep some kind of standard for road maintenance. We got police and fire. We've got to make sure that our equipment are up to date and stuff. Some of our fire trucks are getting past their prime date and stuff, and the insurance companies require, for instance, none of the trucks be older than 20 years old. So the question is, how old is our fleet in regards to replacement? And we're still moving forward on electrification of our bus fleet and stuff. So there's quite a few projects out there. I guess you could say priority projects. I wouldn't call them necessarily pet projects.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're going to take our first break. Councillors on the Hot Seat continues on the other side. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back. This is Councillors on the Hot Seat. In the studio with us today is Shawn Cleary from District 9, and on the phone for us today is, of course, David Hendsbee from District Number 2. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Your opportunity to ask the councillors your questions, and we'll head to the phones, and we welcome Nicole to the show. Nicole, how are you?
I'm well, Dan. How are you?
I am well. What's your question for the councillors, please?
Sure. I just wanted to follow up on my call on Friday, and I know that this isn't in these specific councillors' district, but I wanted to see if you could shed any information or light into this new issue that seems to be arising at Shubie Park, specifically around the off-leash dog area. And it looks like there has potentially been a lawsuit filed against the HRM and an injunction being placed around the off-leash area as well as the off-leash beach.
Councillor Cleary, you heard anything?
No, I haven't.
How about you, Councillor Hendsbee?
I haven't heard of any injunctions, but I know there's been problems in the past of how noisy can be there for the adjacent neighbors in the neighborhood and stuff. So I know there's been complaints in the past, but this first I heard of an injunction.
Okay. Well, this is a great conversation then, because there's a petition up right now that has 4,600 signatures on it, and it indicates that there is a lawsuit that's been filed by 4 residents of a nearby street on Garshan Drive, and they are looking to have an injunction against the dog park, but that there is additional legal action. And it's now seems to be hitting a little more mainstream, if you will. But the issue actually first came up back in May when a member of council, and I'm not going to use any names right now, made a phone call to a local constituent to let them know that this could be an issue and that we may need some community support to keep the park going. And I know that that particular councillor got a ton of emails over a 3-week period, causing them to then go into a closed Facebook group leaving a post to say that it was only a rumor, that this particular resident didn't have a petition, that there was no motion or anything to close Shubie Park, and that it looked like it was typical propaganda from a local problematic resident. Now, that's, again, a Facebook post from one of your members of council, but this is now 6 months that this issue's been going around, and you're saying that as a member of council, to the best of your knowledge, you're not aware of it?
No, it's not something that's come to council. It's not my area. I think Shubie Park is Councillor Mancini, so I would probably reach out to him to see if he has any details on that, but certainly nothing that's come before us.
Okay, so if anyone's listening and they've signed this petition...
what's the petition for? To close it or to keep it from closing?
So I'll read it. It says, a small number of nearby residents have taken legal action to close Sunrise Beach area to dogs and permanently prohibit off-leash access at Shubie Park. This legal challenge follows repeated attempts to restrict or eliminate off-leash access at Shubie, despite the park's history of responsible community use. And
so, sorry, just to clarify, Nicole, so is the petition to close the park or to keep it open?
This particular petition is to keep it open. It's my understanding that the residents that have filed the lawsuit going back to May had already had at least 1,000 wedding signatures on a petition to try and close it. There's been a bit of a turf war in this park for a while, and it happens anytime you have, I think, off-leash sections and you have community use mixing with personal residential use. But I think it's an important conversation to have out in the open, because I think right now there's some tensions running high in that particular part of the city, but there is information swirling around right now that there is an active lawsuit against the HRM to take action against Shubie Park. So any clarification, I think, would be really useful.
Yeah, I like I say, I'd probably best to reach out to Tony Mancini and see what he knows.
Okay.
Thanks, Nicole.
Perfect. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate
it. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That's a pretty used park. That's a busy place.
I would imagine, yeah.
Right.
My wife and I walk it occasionally, and did when we had our dog, and it's always chock-a-block full.
Right. Absolutely. Again, the telephone number is 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. What we're going to do is take a break here for the news. Councillors on the Hot Seat will continue on the other side of it. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. We are back in minutes. All right, we're back. Councillors on the Hot Seat continues. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Just to refresh, in case you're just joining us in the studio, District 9 Councillor Shawn Cleary on the phone today, who's toughing it out through a bit of a cold or a flu. That is District 2 Councillor David Hendsbee. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Let's jump right back onto the phones and welcome Jennifer to the show. Jennifer, how are you?
I'm well. How are you guys?
I am well. Your question for the councillors, please.
Yeah, my question is for Councillor Cleary. It's regarding snow removal. I live on Olivet Street, near the Halifax Shopping Centre, and there's a path. I'm calling about snow removal. The only snowstorm we actually had this year so far. There's a road that passes along the Walmart parking lot, and I called 311, and they told me that it's not maintained by the city; it's maintained by the mall. The road is TA-17 road, and it goes from, Chezzetcook Road to Dollarama. And I'm just wondering if Councillor Cleary could do a favor for all the residents who use this path from Olivet Street. They cross the railroad tracks and they go into the parking lot to go to the bus depot or wherever they're going. There's a lot of residents here. There's over 4,000 residents here. And we use that path. And the last time there was a snowfall, I understand that the snow people, the removal contractors have to dump the snow over the chain link fence. But there's a path that we use, and it's only about 20, 25 feet long, probably just about 20. And I was wondering if Councillor Cleary could put forth just a phone call to the contractor to ask them not to dump the snow in that 20-foot path, because it causes a kind of an issue for us to pass, and it's kind of a safety issue. I fell myself that time.
I would imagine.
We had that snowfall. Pardon me?
I would imagine that would be a bit of a challenge to get around.
Yeah, it is. And it's really simple. I mean, there's just 20 feet that we want no snow to be dumped over that fence. And the other thing is, near the bus terminal, there's a pie-shaped piece of land that has these big boulders, like 2-3 foot size boulders. And the snow removal company, there's a path that people use to get to the bus depot. They cross the parking lot and so on, and because there's no sidewalks. And the snow company, they dump their snow in this triangle, which is fine, but there's a small portion of that triangle, like 6 feet, where people cross to get to the bus. And I'm just wondering if Councillor Cleary could put forth, like I said, a request for the company to refrain from dumping the snow where we cross, because it's bad enough that we have to maneuver these boulders, which would be nice if the boulders, maybe there's only 2 boulders that are in our way. If these boulders could be removed, that'd be nice. But if the snow company could refrain from dumping snow in our path.
All right, Jennifer, let's let Councillor Cleary answer that. I appreciate it.
Can you hear me? There we go.
Gotcha.
I'm familiar with the area. So let me back up for a second. So TA-17 is not a road per se, but everything has to be named so that emergency services know where to go. It's on the Halifax Mall property. And I believe the area you're referring to is the little pathway, the informal pathway that people use to cross the CN tracks to get over to the parking lot. So I can't contact the company directly that does the snow removal. A, I don't know who it is, and B, I would have no authority over them because they work for the mall. But I could certainly talk to the managers of the mall and describe what's happening and see if there's anything they can do to work with their contractors and to work with their management to see but where proper snow storage is, access to the mall. I'm sure many folks who live in your area, as I live on the other side, walk to the mall, and it's easy to get around as a pedestrian, except when it's not. Right. And so I do know that can be an unsafe area, particularly crossing over to the Mumford Terminal. So anyway, I will certainly undertake to talk to Primaris. They're the owners of the mall and the annex over there, and see what we can work out. But I can't guarantee anything because, again, it's not city property. It's not our contractors, but I can certainly reach out to them. I will make this comment. So there is a proposal by the company to develop that northern part of the area where Mark's Work Warehouse is and Moore's and all that kind of stuff is.
It's a huge development. Yeah,
and so I know from looking at their renderings that they've submitted to our planning department, there's a lot more sidewalks and a lot better access. The problem with these areas is when stuff's built in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, there was almost no consideration for pedestrian access in a lot of these commercial areas. So it's something that we need to do. We've put it in our new planning documents. If this mall was built today, it would have to have way better pedestrian throughfare. But built when it didn't have to have it. So anyway, it's something, Jennifer, that I will talk to the mall owners. I speak to them regularly, and this will be something I put on my agenda to talk to them about.
Appreciate the call, Jennifer. Hopefully we can get this situation fixed. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Iain.
Hello, Dan.
How are you?
I'm pretty good, Dan. It's the end of the year, and I'm going to get this rate issue off my chest.
Okay, off you go.
I have a question for the councillors.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, the discussion I heard, guys, was at the top of the hour was that the current tax rate increase is estimated to be now 10.9%. Is that an accurate description of what I listened to?
No, that's not the rate. That would be what staff believe based on the revenue required would be the average tax bill increase. But with assessments going up, the rate increase would obviously be smaller than that.
Can you tell me what they estimated what the estimated tax rate increase would be from that report?
I don't believe it's in the report because we don't have the assessment roll yet.
It is in the report.
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me, Ian, so I can't say.
David, how about you? Can you tell me what the rate increase was proposed in the budget report?
It was just a rudimentary estimate because we only calculated a 4% increase in the total assessment base as a part of that calculation. Our first meeting in January, we should be getting the accurate assessment-based data from Property Valuation Services Corporation, so we'll have a better figure to work with in the new year.
When you get the new assessment roll, what will happen to that 10.9 current percent that they're estimating? What will happen to that number?
We'll hope it goes down.
It won't change by a penny, David, not a penny. It won't change by a nickel. You should know that. You really should know that. It's very disappointing to me that you guys can't answer that question. It's at the bottom of page 3 of the report. They estimated it to be 6.5%. There, Dan, thanks for letting me get it off the chest. I hope you have a great holiday. And let me tell you guys, I think the council does a great job. I'm a believer in the council. I ask people, what have you got against bike lanes? And you come on here and you can't tell me a simple question like what is the actual increase in the average or the actual tax rate. It is bothersome to me. Thanks.
Well, but that, Ian, I'll go back for a second. So I think what David is saying is we won't know the actual numbers until January when PVSC roll comes out. So there's a number of things to consider. A, the residential rate is not one rate. So you've got urban, suburban, and rural residential rates. Plus, on the commercial side, now that we have different zones, like, for example, we tax at a different commercial rate, Dartmouth Crossing, compared to, say, Spring Garden Road or Queenpool Road. And so there isn't one rate. And so when we talk about averages, and especially averages based on predictions, these numbers are immaterial until we actually get the real numbers. And maybe it's 6, maybe it's 5, maybe it's who knows what it is. But just slow down, take a deep breath. The rate will not matter until we get the PVSC assessment roll. Then we can have an accurate picture based on the current forecast what the rate will be. And that, again, is still an average rate because it may affect different homeowners in urban, suburban, rural differently.
The 10.9%, Sean, the 10.9% number will not change no matter what the assessment roll is.
No, but again, that's the average tax bill.
Let's stop for a second. I listened to you very carefully and didn't interrupt you, did I?
Go ahead, Ian.
The mayor asked that question in that committee meeting. What would happen if the cap automatically disappeared? What would happen to that 10.9%? What is the answer to that question? If the cap disappeared, what would happen to that 10.9%?
Well, based on the revenue that's required, the 10.9, because it's an average tax bill that we're talking about, that part wouldn't change necessarily, if at all, because the cap treats different properties. So I think it's about 75%-ish of residential properties are under the cap program. And so if you lift the cap, then essentially what you do is you now bring up everyone to that market assessment instead of their capped assessment. So the rate would definitely change dramatically, but the average tax bill wouldn't necessarily change.
No, don't equivocate. It wouldn't.
No, that's not equivocation. That is nuance, Ian.
It's not nuanced. It wouldn't change by a nickel, not 0%. Sean, 0.
No, but it certainly will impact people differently, and also the cap.
That wasn't the question.
The cap is not controlled by the municipality, Ian. So the cap is a provincial program.
As well as you do. Thank you, Sean. It's just very disappointing to me. Dan, I hope you learned something from that. There's a big difference between the increase in the average tax bill, which is 10.9, and the current estimate of the increase in the tax rate, which I put to you was 6.5% in the email I sent to you some 2 weeks ago. I say thanks for listening to me, getting it off my chest, and to you guys, it's disappointing to me.
All right, Ian, appreciate it. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I'm not an economist, nor am I an accountant, but it feels to me Iain's argument is that 10.5%, which is the number that we've been talking about, minus the 4%, which would be
it's not minus. So your tax bill is a combination of two figures.
It's
your
assessment and your rate.
times your rate.
Yes.
So if your assessment changes, the rate will change.
Right.
To get the same number as a tax bill increase.
But in the initial documents, the assumption is 4% increase in assessment, correct?
That is our estimate.
Right, that's the estimate. So
we won't know for sure until PVSC gives us the numbers.
And absolutely, it could be 6, it could be 3, it could be 1. We don't know yet. But for planning purposes, I assume that 4% increase in assessment was used as a sort of a benchmark where it's been for the last few years as an average. And I think where Iain's getting to is that if that 4% is the assessment value, and that 10.5% is the required amount of money you need to not run a deficit, which you're not allowed to do, then that number works out to 6.5% or whatever he was saying it was. That's my understanding of it. I'm certainly not an accountant.
But what's the larger tax base? If the assessment rate goes even higher, the assessment cap valuations, that means the tax rate could be lower, and we still get that 10% revenue required. So that's the whole issue, really, is what the assessment base is going to be, what the calculation of the rate will be to get that 10% increase in the budget revenues is what's being required. So that's where the clarification needs to come from.
Vanessa's in my ear. We're running late. Let's take a break. You're listening to Councillors on the Hot Seats. Councillor Cleary, Councillor Hendsbee, and I will be back after this update. All right, just a few minutes left. Councillor Hendsbee is in on the phone. Councillor Cleary in the studio, and you are on the phone lines. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Chris.
Good morning, gentlemen, or afternoon, whatever the heck it is.
It's morning still. You're okay.
It's morning still. I'm getting ahead of myself. Look, no matter, this is always kind of problematic to try and explain how this thing goes. And Shawn, you do a pretty good job of it, so most people should understand. But no matter how you spin it, you guys, staff, whatever, want 10.9% more dollars out of the taxpayer. You can adjust the percentages up and down and arrive at that however you have to, but the bottom line is it still is 10.5 or 10.9% of dollars. Also, your figure of, I think you said 75%, Shawn, there's 91% of all residential properties in Nova Scotia are capped. 91%.
Yeah, I was thinking facts.
But my question is, I have a comment first, a short one, and then a question. You guys look to Europe in many cases. It's cited bike lanes there, bike lanes here, and so on. You look far afield to find justification for projects you want to push here. How about sticking in Canada? And let's look at Alberta for a second. Do you know that in Alberta, the average Albertan property owner pays 1.4% of their total household expenses for property taxes? I did a rough budget for myself, and I pay almost 25% of my total household expenses goes to pay property taxes. Let's equate that to dollars that people can understand. I have a friend in Porters Lake area. He pays over $9,000 a year in property taxes. I also have a friend who lives just outside of the main downtown Calgary. That's why I'm using Porters Lake as an example. My friend out in Calgary bought a $1.5 million home the last 2 years. He has a 2-acre lot, so he's more similar to Porters Lake in that district than downtown, so let's compare those two. My friend in Porters Lake paying over $9,000 a year. My friend in Calgary pays on a $1.5 million home $1,500. That's $1,500 a year in property taxes. Why don't you guys look at Alberta and see how they're doing it?
Actually, it's a good question, Chris, and I do look to Alberta regularly, especially for bike lanes. So Calgary and Edmonton have fantastic bike lane networks. And I will let you know, I think for 2025, the average tax bill in Calgary was $4,300. So that's higher by about $1,000 or about $800 maybe than the average tax bill in Halifax. So Calgarians actually pay more taxes on average per household than Haligonians do.
Not true.
Yep.
Not true. Sean, you have got an answer for everything. And when it comes from my friends...
And I will also add that...
He pays a $1.5 million home, pays $1,500 in property taxes. How much does a $1.5 million home in Halifax
Which city does he live in?
Pardon?
Which city does he live in Alberta?
Calgary.
Well,
Calgary,
I can only tell
Calgary.
you what I know from the data, but Calgary's average tax bill this past year was, I think, $4,300.
Okay. Well, you can look at. I've got it up here on the computer as we speak. You can look at that, and it specifically states, on average, Albertans pay approximately 1.4% of their total household spending on the municipal portion of property taxes.
Now, Chris,
I know they pay.
Can you send me, Chris? Can you email me that source?
Pardon?
Can you email me that source?
Oh God, you're asking me. All as I did was I just typed in what percentage of household expenses do Alberta property owners pay for municipal property taxes, and it came up.
Okay, but the source would be excellent if you could send me that, because Google and ChatGPT and that kind of stuff is great, but I need to know where the number came from.
Yeah, I'm not. Okay, sources: Alberta Municipalities Association, City of Calgary, and City of Edmonton's websites.
Okay. Anyway, send me that info. I'll look at that.
But don't you think $1,500 in property taxes for a $1.5 million home in Calgary area, and here in town, what would a $1.5 million home be roughly?
Depends on whether you're rural or urban. $1.5 million would probably be in the neighborhood of $14,000 or $15,000. Yeah,
exactly. This is my point, guys.
No, but my point, Chris, is I think your number is quite off. There's no way in any documents I've seen from the City of Calgary that anybody in a single detached home, especially $1.5 million, is paying $1,500 in property taxes.
Okay, my friend is not lying. I'll get him to send me my tax bill, and I'll meet you and show it to you.
Chris,
I'll buy you the coffee.
Also, and Dan, I want to correct what I said the last day on your show. I cited a lady that was on the Rob Snow show. I cited the wrong councillor, Rebecca Bly. She's from Vancouver. Dylan Brescia, Grand Prairie councillor in Alberta and president of the Alberta Municipalities Association.
All right.
He stated on Rob Snow show 1.4% of household, he said income, but what he means is household spending. 1.5%. It was on. You can listen to Rob's show, go back in the archives and get it. The Calgary representative for the Alberta Municipalities Association stated it on air as well. So my figures are not wrong. We are getting so hosed on this, it's unbelievable.
Chris, I think you need to compare what the budgets also produce. What revenues they get from the province, from Alberta versus what we get from provincially from Nova Scotia. What do they have for their own taxation and revenue sources? What services they provide? Are we talking about the equal amount of services? You can't compare tax rates by tax rate. You got to look at the bundle of services being provided for that tax rate.
Thanks, Chris. We're out of time. My thanks and appreciation to Councillor Cleary for spending an hour with us. Merry Christmas, my friend.
Yes, same to you and all your listeners.
And to you, David Hendsbee, feel better, and we'll see you in 2026.
Merry Christmas to all. To all, good night.
That's David Hendsbee. We're going to stop and take a break. Open Hour continues on the other side. You are listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. Welcome back. That was another edition of Councillors on the Hot Seat, I will call it. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Now it's time for the Open Hour. If you heard something there that you'd like to chat about, a good opportunity to do so, or standard rules apply. If you want to bring something new to the discussion, then by all means do so. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. It seems that our last caller has sparked some discussion with regards to property taxes here versus there. A number of you sending me emails on the 1.4% figure that Chris was talking about, and some of the property tax stuff. I haven't had a chance. There's lots of numbers in there, folks, and I haven't had a chance to go all the way through them and figure out what they mean. But it's interesting to hear Chris, and I have no reason to doubt him, that is his friends paying that in property tax. But one of the questions that, after our discussion on Friday, that I had, and with regards to that 1.4% in household spending, and I, to be fair, should have done my homework on this, but I did not. But I wonder what that includes. If it's household spending, some would indicate that it's in the entire amount of spending that a household does, not just on housing. Right? Could that make sense? That household spending, or conversely, as Chris was talking about today, household income, if they spend 1.4% of their household income, that would make more sense. But if it's household spending, then doesn't that also include all the other things that we spend money on every week? Gasoline, groceries, insurance, utilities. The list goes on and on and on. Car payment. I'm again, and I don't know the answer to it. I'm sure that somebody will let me know. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. That is the number. Let's go to the phones and welcome Ken to the show. Ken, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I am not too bad, sir. What's on your mind today?
Oh, I was hoping to get on while the councillors were on there, because I was giving them an opportunity, to get one question right for this week, but I guess we get a big goose egg again.
What's your thoughts? You're concerned about Metrobus?
I want to ask Shawn Cleary, like he mentioned Calgary and the bike lanes and that. Sam Austin tells us that we get $16,000 a month during the winter on the bike lanes. Geez, Calgary must get what, $25,000 I guess a month out there.
I would imagine.
But anyway, I was hoping that one of them were on the transport committee, because I heard an interesting thing the other night. Somebody who's in the industry told me that our new electric buses that we got don't generate enough heat to keep the buses warm, so they had to go and put Webasto heaters on the buses to keep the riders warm.
I've heard the same thing, but in reverse. I heard the same thing in the summertime with regards to air conditioning.
Yeah, probably. I'm not an expert on air conditioning, so I don't know how that would work or whatever, right? But and I also heard that they ordered a bunch of new buses, and guess what? Zero are electric. They're going back to diesel. Well, surprise, surprise. Like when Loveless was on there and she was promoting the buses big time, these guys are promoting bus lanes. Now I'm thinking, do these guys not have a TV? Do you not have the internet? With all the problems that everybody's having with all the electric buses and the fire trucks and the tractors and all this stuff, and they still want to go out. My thing is, why does Halifax have to be the first to fail at everything? Let everybody else fail first. Let them go for a little while. It's like when a new car comes out, right? You're an idiot if you go out and buy the first car on that, right? Because the bugs are not worked out of it. And it's the same thing with electric buses or electric fire trucks. They'll probably go for next. That'll be a good one too, right? But anyway, okay, that's it.
Appreciate it, Ken.
Thanks,
Have a good one.
All right.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. A story this weekend some of you have sent me, and I managed to read this one on my own on the weekend. Comes to us from Saskatchewan, where the city of Regina was bringing in electric buses, and it turns out that the model, and I don't know if it's the same model that we have here, but the model that they purchased for the city of Regina, it gets cold in the prairies, folks. It gets really cold in the prairies. And apparently they were having trouble getting more than 3 hours out of the batteries when they were really cold. So I get it. we don't get the same cold that they get here, right? We don't get the minus 35s and minus 40s. We do on a rare occasion, but not for a consistent amount of time. But if our last caller is correct that they're having trouble generating enough heat on the electric buses, it's just another part of this saga that is electric buses for HRM. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Anne.
Hi. Well, I've got the solution. We'll go back to the cable cars, the bunny ears. We can have electric buses, but you put the bunny ears back on. They work fine.
We did, but we'd have to put tracks everywhere, wouldn't we?
No, the bunny ears, they go up on the lines.
Yeah, okay. So you're talking trolley buses. Okay, I get it. Yep.
Trolley buses, yeah. And the other things, well, they call them cable cars in California. It was in San Francisco. But anyway, and that would be, I have personal experience with the North. I'm telling you, those batteries will die in 3 minutes. 60 below zero, those, I was just so shocked. I couldn't believe it would get that cold. But anyway, they're going to die in 3 hours. They're not made for the North. Any battery is going to die. You have to have a leather purse. You can't use that vinyl purses. They'll rip apart in the North. The North is totally different, so you can't use that at all. So we'll have to go to the bunny ears, and use the electric lines. And I think that was perfectly fine. Oh, and the other thing is with the bike lanes and all that money that we wasted on the bike lanes, we can certainly do the Halifax form over because it lasted 100 years. I know for a fact from real estate agents that the new buildings are only going to last 25 years. Maybe, and then they giggle about it, but it's not funny. But the thing is that they're not built properly. I wouldn't want to waste my money on that. I would say refurbish the form. It's a good building, and refurbish and it will last another 100 years if it's refurbished right. It's got good bones.
So you're okay with a $100 million price tag?
Yes, I am because I want $100 million for. I don't think the price tag is really that much. I think they're exaggerating, but I really do think that the ones that they're going to put up, are going to last, let me see now, 25 years. So why not it's like if you get a steel roof, it's going to last forever. If you get a roof that's made of shingles, it's going to last maybe 15 to 25 years. And so then you have to do it over again. And I'm not the kind of person that likes to do anything over again. I want to pay the first time and not again. You know what I mean?
I hear you, Ann. Thank you for the call.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That is the number if you want to join the conversation. Lots of lines open here, and looking forward to having a discussion with you. Just got a news release from the Premier's office, and it reads that a new program to develop local fuel and lower power rates. And bear with me, I'm reading this literally has just come on to my email. It says, and I quote, a new program will help understand the potential of Nova Scotia's onshore natural gas deposits and help produce natural gas here in the province. The province is engaging Dalhousie University to oversee the Subsurface Energy Research and Development Investment Program. The university will lead research efforts to better understand the nature and location of the resource and to track and develop guidelines to ensure exploration and development are done responsibly. The $30 million program will help kickstart the province's onshore natural gas industry after decades of inactivity, bringing jobs and investment to the province. The first step includes Dalhousie establishing an oversight committee of people with experience in energy development, including representation from academia, the public, and the Department of Energy, along with First Nations and the energy industry. The university will also lead communication with the public before research starts and manage ongoing stakeholder engagement. The university will set qualification criteria for companies and issue an open call for project proposals. After applications are evaluated, the province will negotiate agreements with successful proponents to determine the amount of provincial investment needed. Proponents must secure all applicable permits and approvals before exploration or production begins. And then the province said it can hold equity in successful drilling ventures or earn a share of profits of production in a number of ways, like royalties. Nova Scotians will receive economic benefits, and each project will produce a return in both jobs created from a new source of government revenue. That just in from the province of Nova Scotia. Of course, many questions associated with that, with onshore natural gas deposit. Is that gas extraction done the traditional way? Is this fracking? Still lots to learn with regards to that, but that just came across my desk. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We are back after the break. All right, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I kind of figured our next caller was going to call back. Hello, Chris.
Dan, you're my mind reader.
I've just been doing this long enough now. Got it figured out.
Look, I'm telling you. Look, I'm not going to take up any more time because I know there's a lot of people want to call probably.
Yes,
so, look, I made a comparison between a person I know in Calgary and one I know out in Porters Lake. I tried to compare as best as possible, apples and apples. I didn't take someone that lives in South End Halifax downtown where I live because obviously the property taxes are going to be higher. But my whole point is that if the average Albertan pays 1.5% of their total household spending on the municipal portion of property taxes.
Chris, do we know what that entails?
Yeah, it's services. I'm reading it here. Protective services as police, fire, and so on.
Yeah, but what's what the household spending is? Is that their entire spend? Is that including groceries and gas, or is that just
okay? That's okay. What is included in the household expenditures?
Yes,
property taxes, heat, lights, water, insurance, food, vehicle expense.
So it's not just on taxes.
Oh no. If you take your total household expenses, if you add up your total household expenses, Dan, it comes up to X number of dollars a year.
Right.
Like mine, for example, it costs me about $40,000 a year to run my house and feed myself.
Okay,
and pay for my vehicle.
Right.
Like, I mean, it's paid for, but
I get it.
Gas and
maintenance and everything else. I got it.
Okay, and I'm paying almost $11,000 a year in property taxes. So out of that $40,000, the $11,000 I'm paying almost, that's over 25% of my total household expenditures go to pay just the property taxes.
Okay.
And in Alberta, it's 1.4%. Well, my friend out in Porters Lake doesn't have sidewalks, doesn't have municipal water, doesn't have municipal sewer, does not have doesn't have a quarter of the things that we have here on the peninsula of Halifax or the peninsula of Dartmouth. The same as my friend out in Calgary does not live in downtown Calgary. He lives on the outskirts of Calgary, much the same as a Porters Lake, Lake Echo would be to us.
Right.
My whole point is that these councillors, I don't feel, are even trying the best that they can with staff to try and find a way to cut through some of this. There's things that they can cut. Don't want to belabor the bike lane thing, but I think the majority of people are in agreement that bike lanes should, at least for the next couple of years, be axed completely. In my opinion, electric buses should be axed. What did David Hendsbee bring up? Something about fire trucks now? I wonder if they're going to go after electric fire trucks. I mean, something has got to give here, Dan, whether it's the Forum, whether it's the Windsor Exchange, whatever it is. Something's got to give because they want 10.9% more dollars out of us. That means they want out of me an extra well over $1,000 a year in extra taxes they want out of me. And what's going to happen the year after and the year after and the year after? I can see 4 or 5 years down the road, they're going to be asking me to pay $18,000 or $20,000 a year in property taxes. That is ridiculous. I can't afford to do it, first of all, not that kind of money. And people are not – a lot of people aren't paying attention to this. As a renter, you don't pay your property taxes directly, but it's included in your rent.
It is.
It is included in your rent. But just for fun, Dan – you get a few minutes, go through roughly in your head how much your total expenditures for household expenses, vehicle, and so on are for the year, and ask yourself, what if I was hit with another 15, 20, 25% bill on top of all that? Would I have a hard time paying it, or would it be easy for me to pay?
I don't think there's any doubt. I don't have to do much calculating for that. Chris, I appreciate it, sir.
Anyway, Dan, thanks very much. Appreciate the time as always.
Just for a point of clarity, Chris, I hope you're still on the line and can grab these numbers. Somebody sent me a link to the City of Calgary's webpage itself. This is from calgary.ca, and it's median residential tax bill amounts. There's a rate calculator on their site, And I'm not suggesting that, Chris, that you're wrong, that your friend's misleading you. That's not what I'm doing here. But this is what the city of Calgary says. In 2025, median single detached residential home assessment was $697,000. Property tax to the city, $2,697. Property tax to the province, $1,610, for a total of $4,308. Thanks to all of you that sent me that link and just to put those figures out there. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Len.
Good morning to you, Dan, and you're doing a fine job. And I just like to wish you and Vanessa a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. That you've done a fine job, and I hope to see you again in the New Year's. And the other thing I want to say is it's too bad when you're talking to these councillors in Halifax that they don't at least acknowledge that they're already making enough money and that they don't want another raise. But that's another day to be talking about.
All right, Led.
But I hope that 2026 that we can talk about maybe good things instead of so many bad things. Anyway, you have a great day.
Thanks, Len. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, David.
Good morning, Dan. I already spoke to Vanessa to wish her and Merry Christmas and all that. And not to forget about Todd and the missus.
For sure.
And save the forum.
So you're on Pro Forum to save it as it is?
Oh, yes, sir. There's a lot of good hockey players that came from there.
So is it nostalgia to save that for you, or is it? Do you think that this would be a useful piece?
There's a lot of NHL players that I'm surprised that nobody from the NHL that played in the forum called up about it, like Chris Nyland. They used to call him Knuckles.
Yeah, I know who he is. Yeah.
Yeah, and players like that, and should get them to call up and say, "Hey, save it too," because Nova Scotia Voyagers.
Yeah, for sure.
Go wrong there.
Yep. All right, David, I appreciate it.
All right, you take care. Happy New Year to everybody.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
David. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I continue to ask the question, to David's point. If we take the Halifax Forum, as I have been told, is in dire need of extensive, like from the bricks in renovation, and we gut it and we rebuild it and we keep the facade on it, is it still the Forum? Is it still the place where Chris Nyland is, as David told us, played? Is it still where you saw those wrestling matches, or is it still where you saw the all of the hockey events and all of the civic events and everything else that's gone on there? Or is it just a building with a new interior? And on the other side of that, if you listen to our conversation on Friday with Mayor Fillmore, that we could build a facility, now to Ann's point, likely won't last 100 years, but we don't know that. But we can build a facility with 4 sheets of ice as opposed to the 2 that are there for about half of the price. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're going to take a break for the updates. The open hour continues on the other side. Again, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're back after the update. All right, welcome back. As we were coming out of the news and into the open hours, looking out the window, and lo and behold, driving by on Roby Street was one of HRM's electric buses. Took a couple of calls from people associated with transit who shall remain nameless, who said that our first caller today, Ken, had suggested that he had heard that we had to add additional heaters to the electric buses because of the cold temperatures here in HRM. What has in fact happened is that those heaters were part of the purchase. So this was something that was purchased with the bus. So it's not that they bought the buses and then realized that the heater didn't work and had to put ancillary heaters on. These were part of the electric bus purchase. But anyway, at least we've heard the stories about the heat situation on HRM buses and the air conditioning situation on HRM buses in the summer. And I just wanted to get that information out there to you. 902 405 6000 1-877 801 8255. Hello, Gloria.
Hello, Dan. Is it cold enough for you?
Well, it's not as warm as it was on the weekend, that's for
Oh,
sure.
my goodness. It's bitter out there this morning. That wind, it's really bitter. I was very pleased to learn that we just spent $22,500 to bring in a facilitator, strategic steps to try to get the council and the mayor to have a better relationship. Taxpayers' money. Did you know that?
I did. I asked our councillors at the beginning of the hot seat, and I think Councillor Hendsbee called it a team building exercise, and Councillor Councillor Cleary said that it was a good session.
Yeah, it says they brought them here to try to get them to work together.
Right.
Yeah. And here we're paying them $103,000, and we have to bring a babysitter in, more or less, to try to teach them how to behave.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. But Catherine Morse would say that's very little when you look at the whole budget, as she did with the raises.
Right.
And when we talked about the bicycle lanes, that's so little compared to what we spend on our roads. You know, it's ridiculous to think of the money they're being paid, and they are not mature enough to go there and be able to work together. Do you think that the taxpayers should pay for this?
I don't. I think that if you have a problem with each other, then let's close the council chamber doors and everybody have it out and have a discussion about it instead of.
Oh no, they had it out at Shuby.
Yeah, I know. I get it. But we can do that for nothing at City Hall and just have everybody have an adult conversation.
Oh yeah, and they probably brought in meals and everything for them. I find it so ridiculous. I can't. But the ones who are causing all the problem, like Kent and Austin and White and Cleary and Morse, should be the five to fork over the money. They are the ones that were, as I watch council, so ridiculous about all this. So when we're talking people having a difficult time, $22,500 is a lot of money to a lot of people today.
It certainly is.
You know, and to think that they're taking our money, Kathy O'Toole organized that. And to think that they're taking our money and spending in that way is ridiculous. So they'll just keep spending it, and they'll keep doing whatever they want with it. And as far as the forum goes, you know, how much are you paying for all this nostalgia?
Exactly. I understand it. Like, I know people are attached to the building, right? I do, and because it brings back memories, and I understand that. But if we can build, the mayor said on Friday, we can build a 4-pad for half the cost of renovating the forum.
It's ridiculous. Spend all that money on the old forum. The other thing that has happened, and is still happening in this municipality, is all the deferred maintenance.
Right.
All the deferred maintenance. Look at the water department, how much deferred maintenance there is in the water pipes and everything. And how about the racket that's going on there now? A gentleman called me about a year ago and said, Gloria, there's something coming down the pipes. Watch for it. And when this happened, he called me, but I haven't called him back yet about what's going on in the water department.
Right.
The fraudulent.
The investigation, that they announced on Friday. Yeah, there's some kind of internal investigation. They're not telling us a whole lot about it, but I think everybody can kind of.
They're keeping it very quiet.
Everybody can kind of figure out it has to do something with money, because that's the only thing that we ever hear about.
Well, right? It says it's to do with money,
right?
And when we think of who's in charge in these places,
well, it's
all
still
the money they're being paid. Who's looking after the ship?
Well, there's four councillors that sit on the Water Commission, right?
Oh yes. But
so
they're
one
just
would
there
think
as
the
a
city
figure.
is. Right. Yeah.
They're just there as a figure. They're probably not asking any or don't know what questions to ask. Anyway, I'll let it go at that.
Sure.
I just listen to this, and it gets more disgusting when I'm listening to people and the hard time they're having. So anyway, Dan, on a good note, have a Merry Christmas, you and your family.
Thank you very much. Same to you.
And stay well.
I'll do my best.
Okay.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I know that a number of corporations have these kind of retreats, these events, these team-building exercises, as David Hendsbee called it, to try and to find better ways to work and to network and, all of the typical human resource buzzwords that we hear about these things. But when you hear of a price tag and to Gloria's point, $22,000 on the grand scheme of things when it comes to the municipal budget is a pretty small amount. But $22,000 can go a long way to a lot of different things. To have a session to try and find a better way to work with one another is one thing. Did it accomplish its mission? The councillors will say that council is working better than it did at the beginning. The mayor said it on Friday. But it's these kind of expenses, folks, that we hear, and regardless of what you think is to Councillor Cleary's point about what a bare bones budget is, and we've heard that there's no fat to trim. That this is where. The efficiencies have already been found. The reserves have already been rated, for lack of a better term, and this is the situation that we're in. And then we hear of an expense of $22,000. It makes you wonder if it truly was or truly is a bare bones budget. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're back after the break. All right, councillors, so the hot seat certainly generating lots of discussion today, which it normally does, and that's why we continue to do it, and we will continue to do it in 2026. It certainly... it gives people an idea of the decision-making process, I'll say, at City Hall, with my tongue firmly planted in my cheek. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Leighton.
Hello, Dan.
How are you?
I'm well. I'm thinking maybe that Chris's friend might be pulling his leg a little bit.
Okay.
I live 20 minutes northeast of Edmonton.
Okay.
I live in a 700-square-foot condominium. My tax bill this year was $1,401.46.
Okay.
And Chris's friend says he lives in a $1.5 million house on 2 acres.
On 2 acres, yeah.
Yeah. So I think he might be pulling his leg a little bit. I can't see there being that $1 difference, $100 difference in taxes between him and me.
Leighton, to be fair, you said you live out. You don't live in Edmonton proper. You live outside of Edmonton, correct?
I live in Fort Saskatchewan, Alberta.
Okay, I know where that is. So you're not in the urban area, so you wouldn't be paying the urban rate.
I live it's called the city of Fort Saskatchewan.
I got it.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah, okay. Like I said, my municipal taxes were $938, provincial $447, and we pay into a couple of little foundations here, so a few more dollars.
Right.
But I just can't see a $100 difference between a $1.5 million and my assessment is $170,000.
Leighton, have you seen increases in your tax rate like we're going to see here in Halifax in the 10% range, or are they lower there?
No, we're going to hit this year, I think, with 7.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about normal.
So it's about 7%, 6-7%, somewhere around there.
Yeah, and most of that will be provincial because the provincial government raised the education taxes 24% or something like that.
Right, because the biggest portion of your taxes tends to go to the province, no matter where you live.
Yeah,
Got it. Okay, late night. Appreciate it, sir. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, same to you, Dan. Thanks a lot.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That is the number. I did a 6-7 and Vanessa never caught it. She usually she gives me that look. For those of you who don't know what this 6-7 thing is, it's a thing with the kids, and nobody really knows what it is. It's just it's the new meh, right? It's the new whatever. I don't know, 6-7. It's just there's no, as I understand it, this is an old guy trying to talk about a new trend. Oh, she's putting her headphones on now, so I'm going to get yelled at.
No, there's just no definition for it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just, it's gobbledygook.
Yeah.
Right?
That's basically what it is.
But it has, it's infiltrating everywhere.
Everything.
I see athletes that are doing sideline interviews that are doing it. I see politicians doing it now, and I see, leaders and people that aren't teenagers, I'll say. Yeah.
Well, I heard the origin from the 6-7 was at a basketball game, I believe it was. They were asking one of the players what how tall he was, and he said 6'7", but it was just the way that he said it that people just kind of ran with it. But there is no definition. There's no meaning to it. So when I hear my kids saying it, I'm like, what are you talking about? What are you saying? I don't know what this means. I think I'm old now, Dan. I think I'm officially old.
I think maybe for Christmas we'll get Vanessa a rocking chair so she can join me on the porch yelling at the clouds.
I would do that.
Ladies and gentlemen, Vanessa Van Ness. 902-405-6000, 1-877-802-55. Hello, Robin. Robin, are you going to put you on hold, Robin, and we're going to get you to turn off your radio so that you can join us on the without the delay, because that's going to confuse the heck out of you. Lots of lines open, folks. A few minutes left. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We got an email from Dawn that reads, "Hey, Dan, fixed cost for an organization is one that does not change despite changes in, for example, sales revenue. Rent would be an example of that. There are two types of fixed costs, committed and discretionary. Committed costs, like rent, can't be altered in the short term. Discretionary costs, like team building workshops, can usually be eliminated in the short term. Companies in financial difficult times usually eliminate the team building workshops as the first step in cost control. Should apply to cities as well." And that is from Dawn. Robin, are you there?
I am. Thank you.
Appreciate you joining the show. What's
Hello.
on your mind?
Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much.
Happy holidays. I'm just wondering, ordinarily, a business looks at key performance indicators.
KPIs.
Both in business. Yep. And I wonder what KPIs were required out of the $22,000 that came for this team building from City Hall, and what the results were from that.
It's a very interesting question, Robin, and I can use myself as an example. Obviously, we work for a very large company here at the radio station, and in the past, we've had to attend seminars. We've had to travel to Toronto even to go and take part in some of these team building exercises or these sessions. But at the end of it, in my world, when I get back from the session, get back from the conference, get back from wherever I was traveling, I have to write a report to tell everybody what I did, what I learned, and kind of justify it, right?
Exactly.
I wonder if
so when can we expect our counselors to do that?
I think we'll be waiting a long time for that to happen, Robin.
Well, you know what? I'm not a young person anymore, and I'd like to hear it happen before I pass.
There you go. Great
Thanks
point.
so much for doing this.
All right.
Bye.
Appreciate it, Robin. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Another email. This one comes to us from Ed and reads, "Hello, Dan. The comparisons between household expenses in Calgary are trickier than what some people may believe. Firstly, easy for me to say, Albertans don't pay a provincial sales tax. Well, they do, but it's only 5%. That's changed since I lived there. It's an HST now, they call it. Secondly, annual energy costs for a detached home in Alberta using natural gas and electricity is typically half the cost of the same home in Nova Scotia, heated with oil and using electricity for lighting and for appliances. And that reads from Ed. He says, love the show. You guys are the best, and Merry Christmas to you and to Vanessa. As I understand it, and it's been a minute since I was in Alberta, they do pay an HST now. When I was posted there when I was in the military, it was one of the key benefits of getting posted to Alberta was there was no sales tax. It was zero. And that and the private liquor stores, which is something that I've been advocating for here in Nova Scotia for many years, is to break the monopoly of NSLC, which we've had obviously in the news as of late from their cannabis end of things. But in Alberta, the competition took care of the price. And it was not unusual to drive down Main Street. Of course, anybody that's in the military knows that with the exception of the beautiful facilities here in Halifax, that the military living in the urban areas of town, and I would imagine Edmonton much the same now with the military up there. For the most part, we get posted to small towns, right? And but it would be nothing for you to drive down Main Street in the small towns, particularly in Alberta when I was there, and to have a couple of different private liquor stores that were competing against each other, and they would have sales. Like legit sales. And whenever there's competition like that, my opinion is that the consumer wins, right? It doesn't matter what the commodity is. We've had this discussion about grocery stores in the past, how we don't have a lot of competition, and that's why the prices here are similar from store to store to store. Well, it was the same in Alberta when I lived there, and now I'm going back to the very early 90s, so things have changed, I would imagine, in those few short years. But it was zero tax there when I was there. It was fantastic when you went to the gas pump and you were just blown away about how cheap gas was. And that was in the 90s. I can imagine what it's like now. Anyway, thank you to all of you who picked up the phone, dialed the numbers, and joined the conversation. You truly make my day each and every day that you do it. We're going to do this again tomorrow, folks. The open hour will go its regularly scheduled time at 11 o'clock. We have Science Files tomorrow as well, so don't forget about that. Wednesday, we're going to do things a little bit different with the open hour. The Wednesday at 11 o'clock open hour, we're going to try and use all of the technology that's in our grasp, and connect up with Santa Claus en route. So we're crossing our fingers will work. Vanessa assures me that it will. And hey, Vanessa's a miracle worker to make this happen anyway, so I'm sure it will. So you'll have an opportunity to state your case, to get maybe off of one list and onto another. I know that's what I'm going to do. And if you maybe want to ask for Santa to add stuff to your list, that might be an opportunity to do that. But also an opportunity for you to get your kids, your grandkids, your niece, your nephew, whoever's in the house, off of their phones and off of their devices, and on the phone, maybe the legit phone, the one where you actually talk to people on it, and get their last-minute requests into Santa. I hope that to hear from a lot of kids, because Christmas is a wonderful time of year for the kids, right? And who knows? Maybe some of the youngsters out there will make their case to try and get off the naughty list. You never know, right? Anyway, we're looking forward to that. And then we're going to do the open hour after that, after Santa. So we'll have an open hour on Wednesday after our calls with Santa. So make sure you're by your phone and listen to the radio as you're doing your prep for Christmas Day, and take us along with you. Going to stop and take a break. Show's going to continue on the other side. Blake's going to join us with an update of what's happening in the news at noon. And when we come back, I think Vanessa might have an early Christmas present out there. I'm not really sure what it is, but we'll see what it is after the break. Right, thanks to Gary, who said that Albertans don't pay provincial sales tax. They pay HST or GST only, not an HST. I misspoke. I appreciate that. And I do believe I think it's 5%. But anyway, that is for Gary. I appreciate the clarification. We've got a few minutes here before our next guest joins us on the program. So as I was saying before the break, it's on the odd occasion that Vanessa gets a chance to wander past the prize cabinet. And we know that the Halifax Mooseheads are off for their Christmas break until the 28th of December. And then they're going to host the Newfoundland Regiment back here at Scotiabank Centre as they kick off the second half and the games start to become more meaningful after the Christmas break in junior hockey, and the Mooseheads maybe not had the end of the first bit of the season that they wanted to see. And I think Gareth, when we had our conversation with him last week, said that this is still a young roster and it's still kind of getting together. They added some veteran leadership to the team last week or the week before in an overager. And they're looking at perhaps getting off on the second half of the season on the 28th of December on the right foot. And the best way to help the team get off to that good start is to get down to Scotiabank Centre and cheer them on. So we have a pair of tickets to see the Halifax Mooseheads take on the Newfoundland Regiment. That's the 28th of December. So after Christmas, might make for a good stocking stuffer. Just saying. It's a 2:30 game, so you can go in the afternoon and still have the rest of your day to go hang out with friends and family. It's during the Christmas break. So I have a pair of tickets in my hot little hands. Actually, it's a daily double. We have 2 pairs of tickets. So that's 2 pairs of wow, Vanessa's being awful generous today. 2 pairs of tickets to see the Mooseheads take on, or host rather, the Newfoundland Regiment, December 28th, 2:30, Scotiabank Centre. Callers number, and don't say 67. Callers number 9 and 12. 9 and 12. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Again, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Would be a perfect stocking stuffer for the hockey fan on your list that you're struggling to find that gift for. Again, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Just an update here for the remainder of the show. We're going to have a conversation with the provincial minister responsible for the Advisory Council on the Status of Women, a new campaign for youth to focus on gender-based violence. We had booked this interview last week, but Minister Martin was feeling ill. So we're going to do that conversation today, and we're going to do that right after the break here at 12:15. And then after the news at 12:30, year in review with the Liberal leader here in Nova Scotia. That would be Iain Rankin. Obviously, lots to talk about with regards to the government's report card of the year. There's been a lot of interesting decisions, can I say, made by Tim Houston and his cabinet and government over the last little while, and we'll have a conversation with Iain Rankin all as part of that. Again, that number is 902-405-6000, 1-877-8255, and that is for those 2 pairs of Moosehead tickets. Have you got your Christmas shopping done yet? I always have the best intentions. I really do. I start to think about Christmas usually in October, and in the corporate world here at the radio station, that's when we start to building the year end. There's obviously a lot of things that happen. Our fiscal is the same as the calendar, so we have to have performance reviews and budgets and all of that stuff. And the budget starts earlier than October, but the year end stuff all kind of mid-October around Halloween starts to get into effect, and that normally gets my brain thinking about Christmas and thinking about, all right, I'm not going to do what I did last year. going to get it all done. I'm going to get out there and get things done early so that I'm not running around and trying to do last-minute stuff. I know many of you are yelling at your radio right now and saying, how'd that work out for you, Dan? Well, I got most of it done, but not all of it. I was a little bit hesitant on Saturday to venture out, and normally I would be hesitant on the last Saturday before Christmas to head out, just based on the traffic volumes. But I'm a morning kind of person, and I like to get out if I'm going to go do that on a weekend early. And there were still a number of places that were without power after the windstorm Friday night into Saturday. So I decided to forego it. And I did get out, and I didn't get my shopping done. And then Sunday got away from me because of some of the stuff I had to do at home. So now I'm looking at Monday. It's 10 minutes after 12 on a Monday, and I still have a half a dozen things I have to do. I think maybe next year, whomever's, if Todd's back or if I'm hosting the show, however it works, is maybe we'll have to have a countdown. And maybe we'll bring some of you on that are like Vanessa, who are just super efficient at getting your Christmas shopping done. Because I try. Folks, I try. But I just can't seem to get my head wrapped around it. And then when we have a storm and it messes things up on the Saturday before Christmas. But one person I know that is extremely organized, that gets all of her stuff done early, is Vanessa. First of all, Vanessa, who won the tickets?
Bob Young and Lawrencetown. Congratulations,
you guys. Go out there and go cheer on the Moose. And anyway, Vanessa, I hold you in high regard with your intestinal fortitude when it comes to getting your Christmas shopping done early.
Yes.
Next year, I think you're going to have a team building session for us. So that
for $21,000.
Well, I don't know about that part. I don't know if we can find budget for that, but because I was just telling everybody, you had your phone, you're in the phone, that I had planned to get everything done on Saturday, and with the power interruptions and stuff, and to be honest, I just didn't want to go out on Saturday, and then Sunday got away from me, and now it's Monday, and I've got like a half a dozen things to do, and the Christmas is like Thursday.
Yeah, you and half the city though.
Right.
So, I mean, good luck. I don't know what to tell you.
How do you do it? Like, how do you, you're done months in advance?
Usually by mid-November. Yeah. Honestly, it's just planning because I just don't have any time during the last 2 months of the year. So I make sure to ask in advance for a list.
So is that the trick? Because I'm old school.
Mm-hmm.
I'm old school in many different ways, as Vanessa will well tell you.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to just kind of make observations throughout the year, but never really ask anybody what they want.
Right.
And trying to surprise them to get that wow factor on Christmas morning.
I do too, and I just keep that on my phone and my notes, and just kind of like write things down and just.
But I think maybe next year I'm going to use the list technique, and I think I'm just going to say, "Hi, everybody, what do you want?" And remember, I have a limited budget.
Right. Yeah. Well, for us, we usually do we have a 4 things segment. So something you want, something you need, something to wear, and something to read. So if anything needs to be replaced in December, this is the time to do it. You got to let me know if you need pants, socks, the usual stuff.
Yep.
Something to read is usually something that we've been talking about that we want to read in the new year. So they'll send me kind of a list of books that they're interested in. And then what they want and what they need is something more for fun. So for them, for my kids, it's usually, gaming things that are about to come out or anything that they really want. But I do end up spending a lot of the year just kind of looking and listening and seeing if there's something that they want.
So Christmas morning for your kids is it a 50-50? 50% they know what they're kind of because they've asked for the stuff, and then 50% is the wow factor of like, oh my goodness, that typical Christmas morning, like, eyeballs popping out of your head thing.
Yes. Definitely.
Well, maybe that's see, there you go. Helpful advice.
And they also give me, they give me a long enough list that they either don't remember because I've been asking for a couple of months, and they go, "Oh, right, I can't believe I've completely forgot about that."
My list.
I mean, I got you yours. Yours is coming in January, remember? Josephine?
Oh, yes. Yes, I get an interview with a celebrity that I'm looking very much forward to. But yes.
Hard to get.
And hard to get. And Vanessa is a miracle worker. So if you are half as organized as Vanessa Vandenez is, then you are laughing all your way through this week. When did Christmas become like 2 weeks?
Honestly, though, November came and went, and in a blink of an eye.
Like, based on the traffic that I see coming in, like Wednesday was okay last week, and then Thursday it was Ghost Town, Friday Ghost Town. Today, holy smokes, it was like I used to travel in at 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't think I slowed down. Oh, I slowed down to the speed, of course.
Yeah.
But on the way on the 102, and I'm looking out the window, and it picks up. It picks up at noon because people are going shopping, right, and doing their stuff. But like Christmas, like it was always as a kid, we always, we're always off around the 21st, 22nd, right around winter solstice, not equinox, solstice, and then you were off until like the first Monday in January-ish kind of thing. But like when I was, working in construction and such and so forth, and military, I mean, we worked all the way through. Man, it feels like that Christmas break gets extended every year, right? Pretty soon we're going to be 2.5 weeks. It's very difficult. Vanessa has a very difficult job trying to get a hold of people because they're taking different times for their vacation. Some people go away. Some people take the week between Christmas and New Year's. Some take the week before, and some people take the week after. It's becoming more and more of a length for the Christmas holidays. Anyway, congratulations to our latest winners. Stay by your radio because there may be more. You never know when that prize pack will drop. We're going to stop and take a break here on the program, and when we return, a new campaign to have youth focus on gender-based violence, a conversation with the minister responsible for the Advisory Council on the Status of Women in Nova Scotia. Leah Martin will be your guest. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm the procrastinator, and we're back after the break. Welcome back as we roll along here on the final Monday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show for 2025. A new awareness campaign launched earlier this month that is designed to help Nova Scotia's youth recognize the warning signs of gender-based violence in relationships. The minister responsible for the Advisory Council on the Status of Women said in a release the campaign brings awareness to the red flags of like manipulation, jealousy, and control. And when the harm isn't physical, we may not recognize it as abuse, but gender-based violence takes many forms. We're very pleased to welcome to the program the aforementioned minister responsible for the Advisory Council on the Status of Women, and that's Leah Martin. Leah, how are you?
I'm wonderful, Dan. Thanks for having me.
I'm very glad that you're able to join us today. This is obviously an important subject, and I think it's vitally important to get it into the grassroots and to educate our children about it.
Well, I really appreciate you saying that. And I thought, just before you went to commercial break, how it was interesting that you called yourself a procrastinator. Meanwhile, you're doing such great work here with just a few days left to go until Christmas. So, you're prioritizing a really, really important topic, and you're helping spread awareness by having me on your show to talk a little bit more about it. So, I challenge your procrastination claims, but I do appreciate your awareness on this.
Well, my Santa list might disagree with you about procrastination, but gender-based violence is obviously a problem. It's, it is an epidemic here in Nova Scotia. And I think that the way that we identify it, and I think that the way that we try to reverse that trend is to get it to become a subject matter of that we talk about and talk about it at the youngest age, so that it becomes, use the next generation to try and get rid of this problem in Nova Scotia. If that makes any sense.
Well, I think it makes perfect sense. And, I think you're a great example of exactly what we need and doing that work. So you're doing what you can within your scope, and you're using your platform to have this important conversation around preventing youth from entering into that cycle of toxic relationships. Education is key to that prevention piece. And so what we feel this campaign is going to do is help educate about those warning signs and the importance of speaking out when they see these behaviors, for themselves or for friends as they're navigating early relationships. And, I think to that point, if each and every one of us in Nova Scotia does what we can within our capacity or in our, our role, our scope in our communities, then we'll get to that level of communication that you were speaking about and get to that level of prevention that we so desperately need.
Minister Martin, how does it work? I mean, obviously these are not easy conversations. No, they're certainly not. They're not easy conversations, but it certainly doesn't mean that we can't have them. We've seen a lot of great work in this evolving space, and it requires all of us. So there's many hands to attribute to this work, and some of the ways that we're doing that is around educating youth about those healthy relationships in our schools. We've got programs like Guys Work, an incredible program that's in schools all across the province that are identifying, males in grades 6 to 9, male identifying students that they can participate, normalize, seeking, behavioral support around well-being and healthy masculinity. We've got women's centers across our province that offer programming for youth to help them identify healthy relationships. We've got the Kids Help Phone. We're working really just to change that conversation, like you mentioned before. What we used to really not talk about whatsoever is now being talked about in this way, and it's important. We don't want people to feel ashamed. We want people to feel like they can ask for help, that they can reach out if they need support, and that people really know what supports are available and out there. So that's what we're really trying to do is spread awareness to what these flags are, but also letting people know that there are lots of supports out there, and we're going to keep having that conversation until it becomes less that it's stigmatized and everybody knows, okay, hey, I can call 211. I can go to stopgbv.ca and find some more information. So there is great help out there, and it's about continuously having these conversations and breaking down those walls and those stigmas. I find sometimes when we want to include youth into the conversation and try to educate them, that we go about it the traditional ways, and while that still works, I think part of this campaign is designed to get to the youth where they are, and that's on places like social media and in their gaming apps and on streaming platforms. Yeah, you nailed it. I think, we can't talk at our youth. I think we have to meet youth where they're at and ask our youth, where and how do you see yourself, being engaged? How do you want us to show up for you? And like you said, through digital advertising, social media, gaming apps, streamings, currently, we're going live on this platform through Facebook running until the end of March. But there's other ways. There's signs and posters. Like right now, the most visible you'll see is through the Cineplex, where they're pre-rolling advertising and posters that will be live until January. And then over March break, we know it's a popular time for our youth. So between March 13th and 26th, it'll run again through theaters and Cineplex. And so there's a number of different ways that we've listened to our youth, and we've asked our youth, does this resonate for you? Does this make sense for you? And the term red flags is really common nowadays. It's a mainstream. It's almost as mainstream as the 6-7 is going around. But it's like we gotta meet youth where they're at, and we have to hear and listen to what youth need to be supported. And that's what we're trying to do with this campaign. Minister Martin, thank you very much for your time. I know you're very busy. Have a Merry Christmas and the best in 26. Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate that. Thank you to your listeners, and shout outs to Jeff and Lisa, who I know are tuned in as well. Happy holidays. That is Leah Martin, the minister responsible for the Advisory Council on the Status of Women. I think that educating this out of the mainstream should be the goal. If we can get this into the kids at a younger age, that this is unacceptable behavior and all of the red flags and everything that's associated with gender-based violence, then maybe we can affect change. We need change immediately. Don't get me wrong. We need change yesterday on this. But if we get it into the heads of the kids and it becomes a topic that we talk about and they find it all of the problems associated with gender-based violence, then maybe that's the solution long term to combat this absolutely awful situation in our province. Time for us to stop. Blake's going to update us on what's going on in the news. On the other side of it, a year-end conversation with the leader of the Liberal Party in Nova Scotia. Iain Rankin will be your guest. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. Welcome back. We've had a year-end conversation with the Premier, and we had a conversation last week with the NDP leader, Claudia Chender. And, we didn't forget about Iain Rankin and the Liberal Party, because there he is. Iain, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Dan, and how are you doing today?
It's the rundown's here, right? I'm looking out the window, and it's looking like everybody's kind of in holiday mode. Are you there yet, or are you still working?
This is about the time I start my shopping, so I was underway this morning, and no, I'm about halfway through. I'm sure I'll be out there again tomorrow.
So you're a procrastinator like I am.
Yeah, I'm a guy. I think you see a lot of mostly guys out on Christmas Eve, and I try to get the work done before, and the world starts to slow down this week, and that's when I like to get out there.
Right, and sometimes I think we just like the pressure, right?
Yeah, then you have to do it, I guess.
It's like, well, do I really? Oh, I better hurry up. Okay, let's do it. Anyway, on to the matters of the day. Iain, we're at the end of 2025. It's been a year, I'll say that much. Your thoughts on the Liberals Party's position? We understand how difficult it is to try and to affect change from a third party's perspective in the legislature, but you guys were able to get some stuff done this year.
Yeah, I mean, for any party with the supermajority, it's more challenging, and a lot of the rules of the House changed to limit the voice of opposition, as well as shorter House sessions. As your listeners would know, the last session was only 8 days in the fall. I think 5 of those days the Premier showed up to work, and we were only able to get question periods for those, but we had some committees that continue to sit. They're not as much watched, but we continue to bring motions forward there. And we bring forward solutions. As an opposition party, we really try to distinguish ourselves as being one that puts forward alternatives and not just complaining. There's things happening in government that we support, and there's things that we think could be a little bit better, and we try to critique how we could hopefully put some ideas forward that the government can repackage themselves, as often happens. And we've been successful with a number of initiatives that the government has taken and ran with, and that's how democracy should work, and we're happy with some of the action on particularly power bills finally, that we have an investigation that's going to take place after a couple months of us asking for a full review, and there's a bunch of other things that Derek Mumbercat up in Sydney and I worked on, and we were colleagues for a long time. So we know how government works, and we're happy to help work with the government where possible.
One of the more contentious files, particularly towards the end of the year this year, Iain, was the pronouncement from the government, from the auditor or the attorney general to have police step up their enforcement of illegal cannabis, and then the Premier saying that that was a result of fentanyl being found in there, not been able to find any evidence of that. Your thoughts on the way that this file's been handled?
Yeah, that's a very odd comment to make around the fentanyl issue, and then have that kind of public relations issue that they've had to deal with related to the RCP saying it's not true. I think we expect our law enforcement agencies to enforce the current laws before us. So if there are illegal dispensaries, then we have to expect that there is an enforcement branch that deals with that, and it gets problematic when there's political leaders that dictate to law enforcement to enforce the law. So it's just an odd thing to see happen, and you just have to question what's the true motive behind the actions. And we support working with Mi'kmaq leaders. We've done that over the years, and that's how you see treaty education in schools and initiatives around that, especially in economic development. There's a big role for Mi'kmaq communities to be part of that. We did that with energy projects, and that continues. But it's about that relationship, and I think the reconciliation relationship has taken a step back over the last number of years. It's fair to say under this government, and there's an opportunity to work with communities and find a way forward to have a regulated model with First Nations that brings them along and helps grow the economy, and at the same time ensure that there's a regulated product out there in the market.
Cornerstone of 2025, at least policy-wise, for the Premier, it seems to be energy and resource development, Iain. We've seen an awful lot of talk about his offshore wind energy project, the Wind West project. Your thoughts on resource development, particularly offshore in the wind area?
Yeah, I mean, I've supported wind development as much as anybody. When I was Premier, I launched the biggest renewable energy tender in our history, and which will be 10% of our grid when it's online. That's the cheapest form of energy by far in the province, and we're going to continue to ensure that we're looking at onshore opportunities before the cost of an offshore industry comes online, which is pretty far away. If we could be honest with one another, we're looking at we're talking about 5 gigawatts, 40 turbines, like huge transmission needs to build out. That we don't have that transmission. We don't have the interties required to bring it to market. We don't have those subsea cables and the port infrastructure required to build that industry. And that the work started before this government, and they see an opportunity to leverage a potential project with the federal government, and it's not unlike what was already underway with Atlantic Loop, and there's other names for that integration of the Atlantic Canadian grid. And we've been pushing since we've been in opposition to build that intertie in New Brunswick and accept some of the funding that has been on the table, even under the Trudeau government, because we had full knowledge that the electrons would move back and forth. So we need renewable energy, and we could potentially export out renewable energy. We're watching it closely. We want to work with the government on that. We support renewable energy. We always have, but we want to make sure that we get it right and that we're leveraging any opportunity that the federal government has there. And we definitely want to see our natural resources responsibly developed and work. It's just one part of the economy, but it's an important one.
The province announcing today, and this might not be fair, you may not have seen it because you were Christmas shopping, but the Premier's office today announcing that they're going to form a working group with Dalhousie, an oversight committee to explore our onshore natural gas deposits and in an effort to help produce natural gas here. Obviously, still lots of questions that need to be answered with regards to this, and what that sort of extraction looks like, if it's wells or if it's fracking. But your thoughts on looking at accessing natural gas onshore here in Nova Scotia?
Yeah, we'll see. I think is the answer to that. I'm glad they included one of our institutions. I think we can do a lot more of utilizing our post-secondary sector here, but our position has been that we would not be legalizing onshore fracking in the province until we had local buy-in, and we just saw that whole exercise as being backwards. To be honest, we had originally there was a letter that went out and saying you're either with us or against us, and there's too many self-interest groups that are wanting to have consultation, and that lack of consultation, I think, has really hindered the process and opportunities in economic development. And we still are not supporting the efforts that are happening right now to just bulldoze through communities and say we're going to start fracking.
And that leads me to, of course, the uranium question, which we saw hit earlier this year, and a lot of groups in opposition to that. And at the end of the day, nobody stepped up to put a request for proposal in because they're worried about red tape. Your thoughts on the government's handling of the uranium file?
Similarly, I think it's clear this government doesn't want to work with communities, and they're making decisions from the 7th floor in Halifax. And there's a lot of Nova Scotians that want to be included in a discussion on what we see as a vision for our future economy, and natural resources is a big part of that. And I think the government honestly is looking more at their public relations campaign, and there's a lot of bluster around it, but when all is said and done, there was no projects, there was no potential in that industry, and they riled up a whole bunch of communities. But for what? So this is a style of politics that we see more and more, not only in Nova Scotia, that sometimes the government or politicians benefit from a divide and conquer and a polarized approach, when an alternative would be to work with communities, have some engagement, look at a comprehensive economic strategy, support those bedrock sectors in rural communities, and develop our resources responsibly and set targets. So we've been calling on an economic strategy for a long time, and I think that there's a role to play for resource development, but again, the removing bans on uranium when there's not even a potential project to happen, I think speaks more to the politics than it does to the opportunity.
We're up against the break, Iain. Can you stick around?
Sure, yeah. All
right, we're going to take a break and more conversation with the Liberal leader in Nova Scotia, Iain Rankin, after the break. All right, in conversation with Liberal leader Iain Rankin as we roll through a Monday here. Iain, you were mentioning before the break consultation, and there have been a number of examples over the last 12 months where there's been a lack of consultation on some pretty serious matters. I can think just back to the cannabis discussion and no consultation with the First Nations. I can think back to the uranium exploration thing and no consultation with the affected communities. I can think back to the decision on various other decisions that there have been a lack of consultation. Does this government have a consulting problem?
Well, I think it goes to the transparency and being able to access and understanding that we're operating in a supermajority. So just because they have that much power and the seats doesn't mean that they need to use that to the full extent. They don't need our votes per se in the legislature, but we're willing to work with them. And there's a lot of communities that are willing to step up, and there's a lot of wisdom amongst communities and Nova Scotians that are grappling with the issues of the day, and I think they just want to be heard, and I think that's incumbent on any government, no matter how many seats they have. And our role really as opposition members is to elevate the voice, and at times it does work. You see when the attempts to look at giving them the power to fire the Auditor General, they could have steamrolled ahead with that, and enough Nova Scotians spoke up and said, hey, that's not cool, that's an independent office, and to the government's credit, they did back down on that one, and that shows that Nova Scotians are interested in what's happening at Province House.
The other one was Mabu Beach, was the other one that slipped my mind. You were very vocal in opposition to allowing development on that beach.
West Mabu Beach, correct. So, and again, I think that I'll credit the government again. I think it's important to not just complain all the time as opposition, and we're still critical of the way that it happened, and that negotiations were clearly underway through the email thread that was made public. But the government finally made a decision that was the right one because community stood up, and this was a fully protected provincial park, not like some other projects that were put forward in the past that were areas of Crown land. This was fully designated and would have set a dangerous precedent for our province.
You also brought forward legislation this year, Iain, to ban the use of social media in teenagers, which was eventually turned down by the government. But then we saw the government of Australia enact similar measures. Is this off your radar now, or is this something you're going to continue to push for?
we only get so many opportunities to debate opposition bills, so we had that day in the House, and it triggered an op-ed from 3 ministers co-authored. So that tells me that they're paying attention, and Nova Scotian parents especially are writing to the government. And I think putting the bill forward stimulated a lot of good debate. It's not an easy issue, and nor was issues around limiting smoking in indoor places in Nova Scotia, or you go back far enough, even wearing seatbelts. When a bold idea comes out, a lot of times people think it's a little crazy, but evidence is behind it, and I've never been one to back down from bold ideas and taking policy choices that might seem to go against the grain. And Australia's leading the way. I think Nova Scotia can play a leading discussion in this important topic for the mental health of our youth especially. And I think if you ask most parents if they're worried about accessing social media, the average age is like 8 or 9 now, accessing some of these platforms and the problematic material that we all see and how algorithms drive them to these dark places. It's an important conversation.
Switching gears a little bit, Iain, we're almost ready to flip the calendar over into a new year, and what's on the top of your agenda as we head into 2026?
The economy. We need to get things moving here, and we've seen a government spend on average $1 billion over budget every year, and our economy's not catching up with the amount of spending. So we've called for that economic strategy. We want to see all sectors firing on all cylinders. We want to see the traditional fisheries, forestry, all these things that help grow the province thrive. But we also want to see tangible work on other sectors, the ocean economy, our startup ecosystem, clean tech. There's so much potential in this province, and we just want to see a united vision that works with communities and move forward and try to rein in some of this over budget spending that's not tied to economic growth.
Given the situation you've described the supermajority a couple of times in our conversation, Iain, with spending running rampant these days, how as an opposition can you affect change on that?
Well, we got to continue to be the voice of everyday families that are grappling with their own budgets. And I think if you ask, most of your calls today are talking about HRM's challenges. I was listening to a little bit, and they're grappling with trying to balance their budget, which they need to by law. And meanwhile, the provincial portion of those property taxes are going up 10%. And, people should be asking questions around that contribution that HRM has to transfer over to pay for needs in education. And so all of these things are related. There's only one taxpayer. There's only one ratepayer. And that's one of the reasons why we're opposed to the NDP strategy of using taxpayer money to pay out a rebate for power bills. It's the same person that's struggling with increasing taxes, whether that's property tax, whether that's your power bill going up, whether it's your grocery bills going up. And we as a Liberal Party really care about the everyday struggles of working families. We're going to continue to put forward solutions to that, and we're going to work hard with the experience behind us to bring forward those solutions and make sure the government is responsible with taxpayer money.
Almost out of time, Iain. One of the burning questions on this show for most of the year is what to do with Nova Scotia Power with regards to some kind of penance to pay for the cyber attack and then overestimating bills. What would you suggest the government do to hold NSP to account?
It starts with a full independent review. I'm not in agreement that they've made the right decisions in the last few years for our clean transition future, and we're going to put forward something at the Utility and Review Board. I think it's January 7th. And what we think is that they need to stop coming every year, it seems like, to ask for a rate increase. That's a new thing under this government's time, so rates have gone up about 20%. And meanwhile, some of the initiatives to help Nova Scotians lower their power bill, to put solar panels on their roof, and to access rebate programs have been reduced. So And I think even the heat pump program came out as a reduction. So there is ways to offset some of the increases. There's ways to help Nova Scotians afford their power bills, but we're seeing the opposite actions in recent times. But I think what we need is a long-term view of how our energy system operates and how we can how to restrain rates from the long term, for sure.
Iain, we're out of time. Thanks for joining us today and spending some time with us. Merry Christmas to you and to your family, and the best in 26.
All the best to you. Merry Christmas to you and all the listeners. Thank you so much for your time.
Iain. That is Iain Rankin, the leader of the Liberal Party here in Nova Scotia. That's going to do it for the Monday edition of the program. Tomorrow we're going to do an open hour, 11 o'clock. I look forward to your calls. Don't forget Dr. Rob is here after 12 o'clock to answer your science-related questions, the science of mistletoe. We'll see what answer we get from Dr. Thacker on that one. Until then, everybody, get out there and enjoy what Nova Scotia has to offer. We're so lucky to live where we do. Patience, folks, in the crowds. Patience. You'll get it done. I promise. Thanks to Vanessa Van Inez on the other side of the glass. Until tomorrow, everybody, be well and be kind to one another.